Right, and we are live. What is up, everybody? Aaron the Dog back with the second breakdown of the week. It's the LFA breakdown, live for LFA 135, I should say, live from Phoenix, Arizona. So no open scoring. That's always what I'm curious about. Otherwise, I just feel like I wish LFA could just say open scoring for all their events, but I don't think they can do that. But headlined by a welterweight fight between, in my opinion, whoever wins this fight probably going to get invited onto contender series, especially if Levea wins or Leyva wins, I should say. I think he's pretty contender bound. I think there's a couple other guys who could be maybe by year's end, but should be a pretty good LFA card here. And with me, as sometimes, Lucky Locks, how are you doing?
Doing great. Pretty good card here. I'm excited to talk about it. Definitely excited to watch it too. Some interesting matchups for sure.
Yeah, yeah, not too many debuting fighters with this one. In fact, I don't think there is other than the pro debuts, which Maria Henderson's been on LFA prelims throughout her amateur career. So, but yeah, we got Austin Verms making his return. Is he going to bust another one of our parlays? Because he's done that to I know me for sure. Yeah, Jenna Bishop, Santos, good fights really all the way around. Actually, I think the guys at the top of the card, maybe Leyva, this is his LFA debut, but definitely I've been hearing a lot about him coming off of the Olympics wrestling. You're going to hear a lot about these guys all the way up. So Alan Bagoso. So a lot of familiar guys. Marcus McGee making his debut. So there is that. But should be a good card. We'll get into it. We got 7 fights. Real quick, shout out to always Norton MMA, but particularly now, I had to switch my StreamYard account up, so I didn't have time to change the backgrounds to some free pub for full reptile. Go ahead and use the code name Norden, I believe it is. Yeah, Norden MMA. Subscribe to his account. You should already be subscribed there. So great one there. So we're gonna start at the 115-pound division. This won't take too long because we've got debuting fighters here, and we've got a minus 500 favorite in the one with the notable name, which is Maria Henderson, wife of Benson Henderson. Obviously, he's going to be in the corner for this one. Both fighters making their debuts here. Melanie McIntyre is who she's fighting out of 6 Feet Under MMA. Have you heard of 6 Feet Under MMA?
Sorry, I was muted. I
No.
know the show. Like, there's a
Okay.
show that they do. Is it in the Pacific Northwest? Because if it is,
Yeah,
I feel
it's
like
in
that's like
Washington
an in-house
State.
show they do. Yeah,
They have,
yeah.
they have a show?
I've heard of that show. I think
Interesting.
was it? Who was it? Was it Ben Tynan maybe fought there as an amateur? He was like the amateur
Okay.
champ, I
All
think.
right. Well, Tynan's looked good. So she hasn't fought since 2018. She lost to Sam Hughes by decision back then. Fun fact: Sam Hughes was 2-3-1 at the time as an amateur there. So kind of different trajectories there. I mean, I haven't heard of any of her wins. One of her wins is over a woman named CS. 0-1 CS. I'm not familiar with her. She was gonna fight Sam Hughes for her pro debut back in 2019. Got canceled. I'm going to guess COVID canceled Dominate FC3, and it never got teed back up. Maria Henderson now taking her on. So, I mean, Maria Henderson, she's a minus 500 favorite. We're not going to be betting it. We don't need to talk about it too much. She is out of MMA Lab. She's won all 3 of her bouts as an amateur, one coming in Bellator, the other 2 with LFA. She's faced a 2-2 fighter. That's her biggest challenge, and it did go 3 rounds. So, I mean, Maria has the grappling here, probably puts her away by submission, but minus 500, we're not going to really be doing anything. Do you have any thoughts on these two? It's strawweight, by the way.
Yeah, Maria Henderson, obviously Benson Henderson's wife, so she's training out of the MMA Lab, like we said. 3 amateur fights, 2 of them on LFA, 1 on Bellator. Pretty good shows when you're just starting your amateur career, and I thought she's looked pretty decent in all of her fights. She has 2 submissions, 1 decision win. Melanie McIntyre, don't really know a ton about her. She was 3-2 as an amateur, so she has more fights than Maria has. She fought Sam Hughes, also fought Morgan Engelhardt, undefeated women's amateur fighter who has a win over Lupita Godinez. So McIntyre, I would say, has probably fought better competition, but Henderson has just been a lot more active lately. I mean, she has all the training benefits of being married to Benson Henderson, right? Like you're working with you're just starting your amateur career, but you're with really high level coaches and really good training partners as well. So she's looked good lately, and yeah, I think she gets it done here. I feel pretty good about her.
Yeah, I would expect it to keep shipping up. I think minus 500 is going to be as cheap as you can possibly get it. This is probably a four-figure by the time the fights go, being in Phoenix and everything like that, and Melanie not fighting in 4 years plus and losing her last two on top of that. So, yeah, not much more to say there. Interesting they have 7 fights, so I'm always fine with more on the main card than having to go to Facebook for your fights. But that's just me. They should just put it all on Fight Pass, which is on sale right now if you're crazy enough to want to get Fight Pass. Good luck to you because it works very sporadically. I swear, every time I'm looking up a fight I need to see, it tells me try again later. I'm like, okay, well, all the fights on, yeah, either way. That's another rant for another day. We're on to the bantamweight division here. One of the few debuting fighters here, Marcus McGee, taking on Rafael do Nascimento at 135 pounds. This is a very interesting fight for sure. Rafael do Nascimento, very, very Brazilian name there. Alicia, he's known as 6-1. He hasn't fought since 2019, so another guy coming off of a pretty long layoff here, ex-gym. So where he fights out of, you see this with a lot of Brazilians though, and you've seen many of them come back looking better than ever. So at this point, I don't really look at it too hard with these kind of guys. Rafael is gonna be 5'6" coming into this fight. He's gonna be a little bit older than his opponent. I believe he's in his late 20s. I can't recall from the fight I watched, but hasn't fought a great level of competition. That's definitely what you see. Mato Grosso regional scene back in 2013-14 before fighting 0-0, 9-9, who he lost to because he kicked him on the head in the first round. It was actually a good fight until then. And then 1-3, 2-3. So hasn't fought a great level of competition going to a split in jungle fights in the last fight there in 2019. Coming into the fight with Marcus McGee. Marcus McGee never has gone to a decision as a pro or an amateur. One decision as an amateur, he lost that, but otherwise, a lot of first round finishes and 2 first round finishes and 2 second round finishes. He just goes in there and he throws, pretty consistent hooks, a lot of volume, not a lot of variety to it. Looks like an athletic guy, looks like a guy who expects to kind of overwhelm his opponents. And I think that he's a guy who I'm going to look to fade at some point in the future. It might not be here. It's hard to say with Nascimento. Very little amount of tape. And also, but he is tough. He goes to a lot of decisions, which is something Marcus McGee has not done. When he's lost. I do think Marcus McGee is going to come out strong, and it's kind of about how Rafael is able to respond to the early adversity for me. I am going to not be betting this fight. I'm going to take Marcus McGee. I actually do think he goes to a decision here. I think it would be important for him. It's always good if you can get your opponent out of there. But for me, that's my big question mark with him is when his opponent kind of withstands the early barrages, because he did slow down even in a few of his wins. I think he just was able to outlast kind of low level of opponents. And Nascimento 6-1, regardless of the level of competition. But yeah, could be an interesting one. Minus 180 for McGee. I think that's still a little bit high for me. I think it should be a little bit closer just because McGee hasn't faced really anybody of super note here either, but he is facing guys at least with winning records with RUF, but all his fights with RUF coming into this too. So I believe that I'm going to go with McGee. I like that he's been more active as well. So, but could be, possible upset. So I'll go with McGee.
Yeah, I think this fight's going to be really fun for sure. I feel like this is going to be a banger. And, I don't know if this is going to last too long, to be honest with you. I'll have to see what the total comes out at. I feel like a stab on under 2.5 probably wouldn't be too bad. Nascimento's got some finishes by sub, and McGee comes out really hard early, so I could see him getting an early finish or maybe starting to slow down, getting a little reckless as the fight goes on. But McGee's 4-0 as a pro after a 3-2 amateur run, and all 4 of his pro fights came on rough, as you mentioned. Knockout win over Rodney Mandala, that's a nice win, and also Rafael Montini, who's at a fight ready, that's a nice win as well. He's got a 100% finish rate as a pro and an amateur. As a pro, it's been all knockouts. Guy out of the MMA lab, pretty well built guy for bantamweight. Really good power. He puts guys away. You mentioned he is kind of one of those guys that comes out just to overwhelm you, and I don't really know what plan B looks like if that doesn't work. We've never really had to see it yet. If we do have to see what that looks like, obviously that's going to be a question mark here. And coming up against Rafael do Nascimento is a 6-1 Brazilian, and he turned pro in 2013. By 2014, he was 3-0. Then had like a 4-year layoff. Comes back in 2018, and then we haven't seen him in about 2.5 years now. He has a lot of submissions on his resume. I really couldn't find much on this guy, to be honest. I could not find a lot of tape. I found a video of him going crazy at like the ceremonial weigh-in, it looks like, with one of his opponents. There was a video of him sparring as well. So I really just don't know what I'm getting from Nascimento. And I definitely agree when you say the line might still be a little bit high on McGee. I mean, he seems like the side to me, undefeated guy from the MMA lab, good prospect. He's really active. He's fighting a lot, all finishes. But I just don't have that much info on Nascimento, so I can't really be confident in either side. And also, I mean, McGee opened up minus 280, and now he's minus 180. So money obviously is coming in on the other side here. So I would definitely tread carefully on this one. This is not one that I think I'm going to bet. Maybe I would look at the under 2.5 in this fight if it's a good number, but I'm not super interested in this one. Just a little too many question marks for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a really good fight. And yeah, there's very little on Nascimento, but if he is intense, I think that could really benefit him because McGee does seem like a guy who kind of responds to that energy. And you want to draw that fire out of McGee early because, I mean, it's again, I don't think McGee knows his plan B at this point yet. So he'd be, I think, finding out on the fly as well. So we're both going to leave it alone. We're both, I think, edging towards McGee, but we also don't know what Nascimento truly kind of possesses here. He's coming in pretty unknown. So we've seen that go very one way or another with LFA with the Brazilians kind of coming out of nowhere. There's been some incredible ones. There's been some not so incredible ones. This should be a very close fight here. I think this is the closest fight of the night, in my opinion. These two are very well matched up here in Jenna Bishop taking on Luana Santos here. Should be a good grappling bout here that could turn into a really ugly stand-up bout. 36 versus 22. That's the first thing that definitely stands out here for me. Jenna, I'll get to in a second, but Luana Santos making her LFA debut here. So again, a few more fighters than I actually said originally making their LFA debuts here. But 22 years old, mostly fights at flyweight. She's a grappler for sure. 2 of her finishes coming by Kesa Gantame leg Americana. So that is a side saddle leg arm lock. Those were at that was at actually she's fought at bantamweight before this. She's making her flyweight debut as a pro here. So that's definitely one notable thing here. Another is that Jenna Bishop is a very, very accredited grappler. She's been there with some of the best, Beatriz Mesquita and many, many others. I don't think she's getting caught in the position that Luana Santos has had that fortune from. That being said, I don't think Luana is necessarily a one-trick pony. I do like as an amateur, she has the ground and pound finish. She's been very regular since 2019, 2 fights in 2019 as an amateur. Went pro after 1 fight in 2020, 2 in 2021, fought in April of this year. Not a great level of competition. Is definitely kind of one of the worries, but she looks to get in there and grapple for sure. I mean, I could see these two kind of just grappling and scrambling for most of this fight. Honestly, sometimes I see grapplers canceling it out. I think these two are going to be pretty willing to kind of do that together. And you look back at Natalie Ribeiro, Beatriz Mesquita, as I said, very very good level of grappling that she's faced in her grappling career. She went pro pretty late on here, but so far 1 finish and went to a decision against pretty good hard-hitting Dion Barbosa in that fight. I had Barbosa, I remember. For me, I do think Bishop is a little more of the well-rounded, developed fighter here. Santos can grapple, she can finish anybody. She's definitely legit, but I just kind of think that Bishop's either going to be mostly on top in the grappling, kind of controlling the position, or be able to kind of dictate on the feet. So I like Bishop here. I just think she's more ready, and yes, she has one less fight, but she feels more experienced and developed here.
Yeah, Jenna Bishop, obviously very, very well established in the jiu-jitsu world. She was a no-gi world champion, American national champ. She has a European Open win, and she's had other performances in the World Championship where she's done really well. Finished third. Her husband is a grappling commentator who's also a black belt, so very central part of her life, and she's been doing it for a really long time. And made the transition into MMA at the end of last year. Won her debut with a rear naked choke, then beat a really decent fighter in Deone Barbosa very soon after. So her MMA transition so far has gone really well. Her grappling has looked really good, as you might expect. She's coming in against Luana Santos here, who's going to be 14 years younger at 22. Bishop is 36 years old. Santos is coming in for, pro-am combined on 6 straight wins. All of her fights, both amateur and pro, came on SFT, regional show in Brazil. 2 of the 3 pro fights have been finished. With a technique that, I agree, I don't think it's going to work on Jenna Bishop. But, two Americana variants, very impressive stuff. She's a strong grappler as well. And I've seen her listed 5'6", 72-inch reach. Topology has like 70 inches. So we'll have to see what she actually measures in at. But either way, I think she's going to have some pretty decent size advantage here, with Bishop being 5'4" with a 66.5-inch reach. So I do like the size for Santos. I also think the striking, she could have an advantage there just because she's been doing this a little bit longer. And I mean, Bishop, it's kind of hard for me to tell how good she is. I mean, she looked great in the first fight that she had. Then the next fight, she didn't win that particularly easily. She's coming up against a young Brazilian prospect who has been at this for longer. And I feel like in this one, I have to side with the dog here. If Bishop is able to win this one, I'll look at her as a much more proven commodity in the next one. But right now, I like the girl who's got more MMA experience, taller, longer, much younger, and has the plus money. So am I going to bet it? No, I'm not really interested in betting this one, but I am going to side with the dog, Luana Santos.
Yeah, fair enough. And money has come in on Jenna Bishop, probably because she is the known name, though. Minus 155 now, opened at minus 130, plus 125 on Santos now, opened at an even money. So, yeah, definitely could be a spot that gets better as the week progresses here. This will be the United States and flyweight debut for Luana here. So that's a lot of factors as well here. Jenna Bishop, I believe, is out of Arizona. So I believe it's not positive there. We'll move on to the next fight. This is at bantamweight. Alan Bagoso, one of the best names in all of the bantamweight division for sure. Love that name. Taking on Paris, I believe it's Superman Stanford, or let me get the full name here. Paris Superhero Stanford, the 39-year-old here, 5-3, taking on the 6-1-1 mini Alan Bagoso. Alan, I will be breaking down first here. 6-1-1, 26 years old now, Team Alpha Male. Last December, he took on Richard Palencia. Very good fight there. Went to a decision. Palencia was just a little bit better wrestler, a little bit sharper, a little bit bigger, and that definitely kind of was one thing that kind of could be a little bit of a concern for the grappler here. Third fight with LFA now, had finishes in his first 2 early on. Finish by KO in under a minute in his debut, LFA, and then he beat an Ululu, not the good Ululu, but still guillotine in the first round as well. Overall, a very good grappler. He also is pretty decent with the strikes. He's pretty well rounded. Definitely goes in there, looks for the finish. Starts out kind of aggressive, slows down a little bit as the fights do go. And with Paris Stanford, seen him fight a few times now. 5-3 is the superhero. He is 39 and a half years old now. He's lost 2 straight. He fought with LFA back against Jake Heffernan. I remember that was a fight I did have Stanford in, actually. And Stanford really kind of back and forth, a lot of scrambles in that fight, was able to outlast Heffernan, cinch up a triangle in the third round. It's really impressive. Heffernan was on a good run back then, too. Hefferman's fallen off a little bit since then. Lost the decision to TJ Laramie in 2019. I don't rate that terrible. David Nuzzo put him away with the KO in 2020 in February. He hasn't fought since then. It was a quick KO. He's had mostly finishes, good grappler, strikes well. Has an amateur fight against Mike Hamill there back in 2015. Paris still appears to be in good shape, but hasn't fought in a few years now. Last fought when he was 37, now 39 and a half. That's definitely my concern here. But with Bagoso, he kind of does slow down as the fights go. And if Paris is still in that good shape, I definitely could see him kind of sticking around and kind of sneaking in, even a submission win against a good grappler in Bagoso. So this is one that for me, Bagoso should, if he's as good as we're thinking he is, he should kind of cruise in this one. If I'm being honest, he should be the one who's still 26 years old against a nearly 40-year-old who's been off for a few years. Was finished in his last bout in under a minute. This is one that I expect Bagoso to finish, but I do think if you're seeing that Paris's game really still in it and not your average 39-year-old, I could see a way where he sneaks away with this one late. But I'm going to go with Bagoso here. I hate the odds, completely hate them. I think this is way off here. For me, Paris is a live dog at this price. I'm going to go with Bagoso, most likely to finish inside 2 rounds.
Yeah, Paris Stanford, 5-3. I believe he's the head jiu-jitsu coach at Fight Ready. So a very high-level jiu-jitsu player. He was a national champion in jiu-jitsu, IBJJF competition. Actually went to high school in Italy as well, and he was a European wrestling champion over there. So that's interesting. You mentioned an amateur win over Mike Hamill from 2015. I feel like that's aged very well. And he had a 4-0 start to his pro career. Lost a split on Combate, then got that submission win over Jake Heffernan, and that was a really impressive win at the time. Heffernan was he like 7-1 or something like that? He was
being touted as like
he was a big
series.
favorite. I remember he was a big favorite.
Yep.
And then he lost his last 2 fights to Laramie and Nuzzo, and he was pretty much just held down for the full fight by TJ Laramie in that one. And I think that he thought he was going to be able to, he kind of welcomed the takedown. He thought he was going to be able to get off a lot more offense from his back than he actually ended up being able to do because, Laramie's top game is heavy. He's a good fighter. There's a reason he made it to the UFC. So Stanford now is 2-3 in his last 5. He's 39 years old, 2.5-year layoff, 2 straight losses. I mean, to good fighters, but he's also usually a featherweight. Now he's cutting down to 135. I mean, he's a coach, so I feel like he is in good shape. I don't think he's taking a fight where he doesn't think he can make the weight, but we just kind of have to take that into account at this point. He's fighting a guy that's 13 years younger than him, who's built very solidly at this weight, and Alan Bagoso, who's a 26-year-old team alpha male guy. I mean, just take a look at him. You can tell if you had to guess what gym, man, you would guess team alpha male. He looks like that type of a guy. His first loss came against Palencia. I was on Palencia there. Bagoso, 83% finish rate, finished both of his LFA wins in the round. Aggressive guy, mean guy, been a lot more active. I'm going with him because he's much younger, much more active, and I just think he has more fight left in him at this point. But this is definitely not a guy I want to lay minus 450 on. I'll tell you that, against, most people.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, he is, another thing is that with Paris, if he makes this weight, he's going to be the much longer guy. Maybe not the bigger guy because Bagoso is kind of a mini tank, but
taller,
that frame's going to be significant. Sure. Yeah, so it should be interesting here. Yeah, plus 350 on Paris Stanford. I get if you're taking a small shot there. Like, it might, again, Bagoso could very well end this quickly. And I think in Bagoso's world, that's the ideal way. The longer this goes, the more nervous I'd be if I was holding a minus 450 Bagoso ticket, though. So I would not recommend that. Should be a good fight again at 135. Next fight at 155. This one is this one's interesting, honestly. Another, sometimes they really pair up the card and they do a lot of grappling. This one, or a lot of striking. This one's a lot of grappling kind of pair ups here, where I actually do see the grapplers taking part in that, which could make you a little nervous if you're on the Clay side, which, spoiler alert, I am here. I'm very much on Lucas Clay. I'm not buying Austin Verm's stock. I'm still not buying it. I don't care if I got burned on Jacoby. But yeah, where can you bet this card? I mean, it should be open in most books by Thursday afternoon. So I've typically found it on Bovada. I've found it now on a few others as well. So, but yeah, Lucas Clay, Austin Verms here, 5-3 versus 8-2. Allegedly 8-2. I know I was on McKenzie last time. I personally do feel that Lucas Clay won that fight. I was feeling very fortunate to cash my McKenzie ticket that night. And in no way did I lose stock on Lucas Clay that night. I think he learned a lot. I think it was valuable. I think it did show he's not quite ready for the next level yet. So it's really, but I think he's certainly well above the level of an Austin Verms. I'll say that much. He's a good, tricky, very good grappler, 6 foot tall, long reach here, 75 or so inches, 26 years old, St. Charles MMA, good grappling camp as well. Yeah, I like a lot of what I've seen. The McKenzie fight again, not a bad performance at all. The JJ Okanovich fight, very impressive in that one there. Yeah, that has the slick chokes, the triangles, the Barbaro choke in his last finish of Jay Korzowski. He's just looked very, very steady. I do think that I would like to see him trade more, because it's just the one thing that Star Killer can do is he can sneak in that armbar. That's the only way he's winning, though. If you're not wrestling with him on the feet, he doesn't have anything for you. But look at the last 3 wins: armbar, armbar, armbar. Last 2 over undefeated fighters there. So hasn't faced a crazy level of competition, but again, he's beating guys with winning records. And then Jacoby Jones. I mean, Jacoby Jones looked excellent in his last fight. Like, really, really good. I think that Austin Verms taught him a tremendous lesson. So I just don't see Lucas Clay falling into those traps. I would caution that I do think Clay's going to grapple too much against Worms here still, just because you just shouldn't grapple. Just trade with this guy who has nothing on the feet. But that being said, I'm still riding with Lucas Clay.
Yeah, I think I'm really looking forward to this one. I think this is going to be a great fight. Austin Verms, he's living up to that Star Killer nickname, man. He keeps finding a way to get to this armbar and beat guys that are, reasonably highly touted guys. There's a reason he's got the position on the card that he has this time, and against the fighter, a really good fighter in Lucas Clay, who just came off a title fight, right? So he's getting his little step up now, and I feel like it's well deserved. I didn't pick him in many of those fights, but he did go in there and get the job done. So, respect. He got it done. He deserves to step up. This is going to be a tough one against Lucas Clay here. Verms is obviously a really good jiu-jitsu player, really, really, really good at getting to that armbar position. I believe he coaches jiu-jitsu as well. He's on a 3-fight win streak. Coming into this one, had kind of a rough start to the pro career, 2-3, got knocked out a couple times. But man, that armbar has been real good to him in the last 3. All 5 of his wins are submissions. 4 of them are armbars. Last 3 wins are armbars in the first round. Defeated Chris Renteria and Jacoby Jones in his last 2 fights. Guys that are good strikers, good wrestlers, but when you engage with him in those exchanges, like he's just too good at getting to the armbar. You just can't do it. And like I said, fighting guys that are maybe better wrestlers and maybe better strikers, but he's just lethal in those exchanges. But this is kind of a matchup where I feel like his opponent this time kind of has that base covered. I mean, Lucas Clay is a very good grappler, very good prospect. Out of St. Charles MMA in St. Louis, he was a 5-1 amateur. The 1 loss was Will Starks. 8-2 as a pro. The 2 losses, one of them Trey Ogden, who's in the UFC now. The other one, Aaron McKenzie. He's the champion, probably going to get a look at Dana White's Contender Series or maybe a short notice call to the UFC. And he has really big wins too, man. Brant Moore, I believe he's the first guy to beat Brant Moore in the regional scene. He beat Mike Breeden, that guy we saw in the UFC, beat JJ Okanovich. We saw him Dana White's Contender Series and just fought for the LFA title in a very, very competitive match with Aaron McKenzie. He went to a split there. And I thought in that, I was on McKenzie there, and Clay's striking looked a lot better than what I remembered in that fight. I feel like he's been leveling that up, and that was kind of the one area where he needed to improve a little bit to get to the next level, in my opinion. And I feel like he definitely has been on that path and has been bettering himself in that aspect. And the grappling is always on point with this guy. You know what you're going to get. So I feel like Lucas Clay has the advantage on the feet here, and I think he's going to be able to negate a lot of the submission threat. I mean, Verms, you basically can't say that when you're dealing with Austin Verms because he can always get that armbar. And I agree with you. I do think that Clay is going to grapple here, but I feel like he's the advantage in this one. I feel like Lucas Clay gets it done here.
Yeah, I mean, minus 350 here. It's definitely one of these that I'm tempted to book on a few parlays for, even for the cross. This weekend's UFC is tough to bet. I'll be honest. Like, it's tough to find a lot of really reliable guys. I mean, yesterday I was doing like my five favorite for a money line parlay. I'm saying Jared Vanderaa and Jamie Pickett. Like, I mean, this is it. It's so a minus 350 Lucas Clay to me does have value for parlays, but he's going to be grappling. He has long arms as well. And Austin Verms is very aware of that. And Austin Verms is going to be going for it. So he's going to jump guard at some point. It wouldn't surprise me. Like, this guy wants to be on the bottom. So that's the only thing I'll say is that sometimes Lucas just grapples a little too much for my liking. But again, Andrew, like, just look up, but Bovada should have these later in the week for sure to bet on. So, but just check around, shop around. It's always different, but should be a good one here. Third from the top. Austin Verms has earned his way to third from the top, and Lucas Clay arguably lost that last fight against McKenzie. I kind of thought he didn't. And he's worked his way from off of the main event. So two different, kind of mentalities there to consider, but should be a good one. We're on to the co-main event here. This is one of my favorite guys in the regional scene, Huascar Cruz. If you follow me on Titan Breakdown or LFA Breakdown, I pick Huascar Cruz a lot. So I always like to mention that ahead of time of fights like this, because this is going to be another spot that for me, I'm going to be a little biased here because I wasn't that impressed by Felipe Buenas in this last fight. I have been impressed by the tape I saw of Buenas, though, and he was fighting a very good fighter in his last fight. But going to talk about Huascar Cruz here. 11-6 versus 13-9 here in the co-main event. MMA Masters, longtime representative Huascar Cruz. He's 38 years old, but again, I don't worry about that too much. Last weighed in at the 129 mark, though. So that's definitely a little bit of a concern here because, he was at catch weight, going back down to flyweight now. But against Carly Pangolin, he just, I don't know, pretty much showed and exposed Carly as maybe a regional stud who's going to learn the hard way that you can't always be a hammer. I mean, Carly looked really bad in that spot. I get Huascar won, but Carly looked horrible and just needs a lot of work here. Shout out to Rick James, who's stopping by here. You're welcome. Before that, the Hoiberg and Trevia fight, really good fight. That was another fight that I had Huascar Cruz in. Went to a split decision there. Super competitive. It was in Hoiberg's backyard as well. So complete home. And I had Huascar there. So the last couple fights for Huascar looked very, very good. He did lose to a 7-8 Shojin Amiki 3 fights ago with Combate. Then he beat a Ledesma. He put away a Ledesma. And then he's, losing to Victor Diaz, who was a very good fighter. When he was in there with Christian Yanastrila, that was another fight where I was all over Cruz because Yanastrila is coming in with some decent hype. And again, Cruz kind of exposed that. Here he's going against a very legit, pretty similar fighter and a veteran guy in Buenas here, the Brazilian. So I don't expect him to just kind of be able to overwhelm and use his veteranship to get a win, which frankly is how kind of Huascar Cruz has been buttering his bread for the last few years now. Taking advantage of younger fighters earlier in their career who aren't quite as used to facing the adversity and things like that, and then they kind of just fold right away. Felipe, he's not going to do that here. He is 11-6 coming off a fight with Jussier Formiga, where Formiga did miss weight as well, I believe, for that fight. So, I can't really hold it against him what happened there. The Mikael Cilander fight, 20-8 guy, really an entertaining fight back and forth before he got that finished by the triangle armbar, and that was coming off 3 straight losses, although to really good guys with ACA. So this guy's been there with really high level guys. Ended Sherbatov's undefeated streak there. Goes for flying, submissions, whatnot. I think this is going to be a really entertaining fight between 30-plus-year-olds at 125, which you wouldn't expect to see. But I don't think this is going to look like two 30-plus-year-olds. I'm going to go, shockingly, this is the first time I'm picking against Huascar Cruz in years. I'm going to go with Felipe Buenas here. I just think he's got a ton of experience, and I just think one of the biggest strengths for Huascar is that he takes advantage of guys who haven't been there yet and takes them to spots they haven't been. I just don't see there being many spots where Buenas hasn't been, and it gets overwhelmed by Cruz here. So I think that Buenas takes this one, more athletic, similar level, if not a better level of competition faced. Both guys are absolutely jacked for this division too. I'm really excited for this fight. I think it's going to be a great fight. But unfortunately, I'm going to hopefully jinx my boy here, Cruz, because I'm going with Buenas.
Yeah, this fight's going to be really fun. Really good co-main event. Felipe Buenas, 11-6 fighter out of Pitbull Brothers and Fight Ready, making his second LFA appearance. And man, last time he basically got the toughest matchup he could have possibly got at the 125 division of the LFA, man. I mean, UCA Formiga. Not only, I mean, I bet him in that fight. I'll take the win, but he not only did he miss weight badly in that fight. He
6 pounds, right?
Yeah, he was way over. And Bunas came in, he made the weight and he got beat that night. It is what it is. You lost to UCA Formiga. I mean, there's a big difference between him and Huascar Cruz, I'll say that much. And Bunas had a 2-3 run on ACA, and he fought some absolute killers over there, man. I mean, the strength of schedule, when you see guys coming from ACA, normally is already better than a lot of places over here. But especially his, I mean, Imran Bakuev, that is aged, that there's zero shame in that loss. Murad Magomedov, same. Had a flying triangle win over Yoni Sherbatov, beat Mikhail Sealander, who's a decent fighter. And he held a 10-2 record before going 1-4 in his last 5, where he was fighting really, really top level guys. And then Huascar Cruz is, 13-9, not the best record, training at an MMA Masters in Miami, but he has a ton of fights and he's a real staple of the regional scene, especially like the Florida Southern regional scene. If you watch Titan, you've probably watched this guy fight like 5 times. And he always takes tough opponents. The results kind of go up and down for him. And Cruz is, he's a really good measuring stick for these guys that are on the regionals. If you can beat them, you're probably ready for a little step up. If not, you need to tweak some stuff and make some adjustments before you can get to that next level. So Cruz is 2-3 in his last 5. And I mean, it's just weird because, he'll like you mentioned, he'll beat somebody like Claudio Ledesma. That's a great win. And then he'll get tapped out by Shojin Miki in the next one, right? And he got finished by Victor Diaz. That's whatever. That's a really good regional flyweight. That's still to this day, I believe, he's the champion, 125 in Titan, if I'm not mistaken. And Cruz also had that split decision, Robert Echeverria. That was a really good showing, and then had a really good performance over Carly Pangolin, and got the finish in the first round and really, really put it on him there and show the levels. That's what I mean by the measuring stick. Carly Pangolin was looking good, not ready for that next step yet. Cruz has fought some good guys, but I feel like Buena's strength of schedule is way, way superior, if I'm being honest. Cruz had a great performance last time out. 38-year-old flyweight. He doesn't look like he's 38. I always say, always 38. He never really looks old and labored, but he is going to be giving up what I call the holy trinity of youth, height, and reach in this one. And I think Buenas is just a much bigger challenge than Pangolinan is. He's a good striker, really good grappler, and I think he gets the job done on Friday.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I saw the number when I look at this, and I was trying to find my angle to get my plus 260 Huascar Cruz bet in, but I don't see it here. I'm even still considering Buenas here, but I'm probably going to leave it alone at this point just because it's 2 veterans, but minus 325 now for Felipe. I unfortunately do think that's pretty accurate here. I think Felipe Filipino gets the finish in that one. Good co-main event there. Main event time, 170 pounds here, welterweight division here. Alfonso Leyva taking on Daniel Reis, the Brazilian fighter here. Let me just get the last of my times down. There we go. Yeah, this should be an interesting fight here. Was able to find a lot of tape on Alfonso Leyva, so that's good, and not just a bunch of wrestling tape, although I did find a lot of that. He is a former Olympic Greco wrestling representative on Mexico here, 2016. Fought or wrestled in the Olympics here. Now I have Entron Gym in Guadalajara. 29 and a half years old, taking on the 30-year-old Brazilian Danny Boy, Daniel Reis here. Um, Going to give up a couple inches here at 5'9", but very, very well built fighter here. 2 straight wins for him coming into this one, although against not a great level of competition, really, other than the Bonveri fight where he faced a 10-3 fighter and got flying knee and punch KO'd. 3-16, 0-4, and 2-0 are his last 3 wins. Mostly a grappler. See the armbar finishes on there mostly, as well as a rear naked choke first round for the most part in his wins. A split over William Diaz, a 13-10 fighter. Faced Glaucio Franca early on in 2014, got a decision there. That's definitely his most notable win there. Glaucio Franca sometimes shows up, looks really good. Other times shows up, looks really bad. But yeah, it's going to be tough for him to get his grappling going for sure. In this one, he's facing a really legit world-class wrestler in Alfonso Leyva here, who goes by Sniper, which is an interesting nickname for the wrestler. He's fought at middleweight. November of 2021 is the last time he fought with UWC, where he's had all of his pro fights. His pro debut, I love how it says win by Alfonso Leyva, which I went back and watched that fight. He won by KO in that fight. So his 32nd KO, his opponent kind of folded right away. 0-0, 0-0, 0-0, 1-2, 2-1. Finished all 5 of his opponents with the KOs here. Looks to have pretty good boxing. Still looks like he's rounding into shape. I definitely think that eventually he will be at 170 because he does still look to have a little bit of extra fat even in his catchweight fight at 175. He's been working his way down. So that's the first thing. He's never made 170. He's in a main event here against a guy who has made it quite a few times. At least I believe he hasn't made 170. He's been at 180, 175. Yeah, mostly 180. Does, and even 205. So he has looked a little soft in there, if I'm being honest. There's definitely weight from the lose. And, because he's a wrestler, I'm not worried about the cut here exactly. Daniel Reis, by far the most experienced fighter in his career here. So I just think, it's a big test for him early on. Leyva has a ton of hype here. Like, I honestly think if he comes in and gets a finish, he's going to be on the Contender Series immediately at 6-0, just because of the wrestling credentials and kind of getting 6 straight finishes. I think, especially over Daniel Reis here, it'd be a big showing. But Daniel Reis, I definitely think could come in here and surprise Alfonso for sure. He's definitely got the experience. And yeah, I'm just a little bit curious to see. But I'm going to go with Alfonso Leyva here. Most likely gets the finish for me. I think that his, striking does look to have quite a bit of power, but I'm curious to see 170. I'm not going to be betting this at minus 240. Not a price I'm looking to bet here. Definitely want to see it, but exciting prospects potentially here. And Leyva and Reis definitely could play spoiler though.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. Alfonso Leyva and Daniel Reis, 170 pounds. Leyva's at Entrum Gym. A lot of good guys there. 29 years old, very long wrestling career. 2-time Olympian representing Mexico at the 2016 and 2020 Olympics in Greco-Roman wrestling. And Greco-Roman obviously is the one people say isn't the best, wrestling specific base for MMA due to the fact that you can't grab an opponent's legs. You can't use your own legs to take them down like you are able to in freestyle. So, but we still have seen many, many Greco-Roman guys come to MMA and have success. And obviously, with the fact that Leyva was a Olympian, I'm pretty sure he can do whatever type of wrestling you're trying to do. This is definitely not a guy that I think is going to have any troubles in that regard. He was a silver medalist also at the 2019 Pan Ams. And when he transitioned to MMA, he did not waste his time on the amateur circuit. Just went straight to pro. And he's had a lot of success, 5-0, 5 finishes. All of his fights have been on UWC. I believe that stands for Ultimate Warrior Challenge, something like that. Low level of competition, but what do you really expect, right? This guy didn't even have any amateur fights before this. He's not going to come in fighting a bunch of undefeated prospects. So combined opponent record of 3-3. Three of his opponents were 0-0 debutantes, but impressive finishes in all of them. And this guy is a lot more confident and a lot more comfortable being on the feet than you would probably expect from a lot of these kind of wrestler turned MMA fighter type guys. You see that wrestling pedigree, you see the knockouts, and you think, yeah, he's probably taking these guys down and just, little shots so the referee stops it. No, he's boxing with these guys, he's standing with them, and he looks good on the feet. I mean, the footwork looks good, a lot of feints. I feel like he looks really comfortable on the feet, actually. Coming up against Reis here, who's an 8-1 Brazilian, and started his career in 2013. By the end of 2014, he was 6-0. And I don't really feel like the strength of schedule that he's faced has been particularly good. I mean, we didn't really see him that often after that. We saw him once 2015. He lost that one, won in 2016, and then he didn't fight for 6 years. Comes back off a really long layoff and gets a round one rear naked choke against some guy in some show in Bolivia. I mean, I don't really think the strength of schedule is super strong for Reis, to be honest, looking at it. I mean, he fought a 40-year-old that had a 3-16 record. He fought an 0-4 opponent, and he fought one half decent guy in 2015. He got finished in that fight. But he's a really big guy. He's the most experienced guy that Leyva will have ever fought. I don't think this is necessarily going to be an easy fight for Leyva, but I do definitely think that he's the side. I mean, I think he looks sharper on the feet. I know he's been way more active in terms of getting fights, and he's training at a really top level gym. Reis is big. He's powerful. We've seen him blast double guys, get submissions. I don't really think he's doing that to the Olympic wrestler here. And on the feet, I just think Leyva looks a little more slick. So I'm going with Alfonso Leyva here. Team Mexico. I got my Mexico shirt on today as well. So yeah.
What do you think about the minus 240 tag?
See, this opened, I want to say it opened minus 150 or something, and I can't remember exactly what the opener on Bet Online was, but I didn't mind that at all. I mean, that was gone. And now minus 240, I mean,
it's probably about accurate.
Yeah, I think it's about right. I don't think it's quite enough for me to bet it. But I do kind of agree for the most part. I might have it a tiny bit closer, but I think minus 200 is fair.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So yeah, that's gonna do it for this card. This is honestly a card where we had a couple disagreements. I think it's really solid. What do we have? The Bishop Santos fight?
Yeah,
we disagreed on. Is that it?
I think that was it.
Okay. We both took McGee.
Yeah.
We both took Bucoso. Okay. Yeah. So I know we both took Buenos. Okay. Yeah. So we only had the one. So actually just, so pretty good to have 6 out of 7 agreements on a relatively close card. So should be an interesting one. The UFC breakdown already on the channel here. Again, it's a tricky UFC this weekend. For sure. I would not be rushing to the betting window on this one. The Battle of Raphael's should be an interesting one. We're on Fiziev here on the channel. But again, betting against Rafael dos Anjos in a 5-round main event, going to be nerve-wracking. So should be good. Friday, just the LFA. There's a Fury, I believe, on Friday as well, which, I'm not going to be covering it, honestly. I'm just not going to be able to. But those are both on Friday. UFC's on Saturday. Lucky, is your LFA breakdown up yet?
It is. I just uploaded it prior to hopping on.
Sweet. So yeah, definitely go check that out. Again, once you do figure out somewhere to bet, Andrew Stubbs, go check it out. It's the best way to put together your final kind of bets here. This will be here with the timestamps, but Aaron the Dog and Lucky, we are out until our next breakdown. Extra shout out to Norton MMA for the new StreamYard spot here. So follow all those Norton and go to Full Reptile Collective and type in Norton for 20% off. But yeah, I'm getting nothing out of that, but appreciate Lewis as always. Appreciate everybody. Take care. Peace out.